Up when you add it all up, it's $1 trillion.
Way over 100, Canada.
Canada, a longtime energy partner, has shut down the $13 billion oil export pipeline to the United States, leaving Washington unable to respond in time. Canada stopped supplying oil and gas to the United States. Canada, the biggest energy supplier to the United States, shocked Washington with its decision to halt energy exports. This immediately caused a surge in gas, oil, and electricity prices in the United States, leading to unprecedented disruptions in the lives of millions of Americans. How will Americans cope with the rising prices of essential goods, including fuel, food, and public services? From daily commutes to flights, everything is being affected. The aviation industry faces added fuel costs, while transportation, manufacturing, and many other sectors are struggling due to the high energy prices. The reason behind Canada's decision? For years, the United States has imposed numerous trade tariffs on Canadian goods, believing that its neighboring country wouldn't dare to retaliate. But that belief is now being shattered. Canada had long warned that this could happen, yet Washington paid little attention. Eventually, a strategic shift was made. Canada not only stopped oil exports to the United States, but also signed long-term deals with other countries, particularly China and India, the two largest energy markets in the world. This is not just a political response but also a long-term economic strategy to reduce dependence on the United States. With these new agreements, Canada has opened the door to becoming one of the leading energy suppliers for major global economies. Europe and Asia are ready to replace the United States. So, when the United States suddenly loses its critical energy supply from Canada, who will step in to replace it? Europe and Asia have quickly stepped up. Canada has signed billion-dollar agreements to supply oil, gas, and electricity to countries in need of a stable energy source, especially Europe, which is seeking to replace energy supplies from Russia. At the same time, China and India have secured long-term agreements to ensure energy supplies for their rapidly growing economies. Canada's export ports and energy systems are now not only directed toward North America but also shifting their energy flow toward Asia and Europe. This not only creates a massive shock for the United States but also fundamentally changes the global energy balance. The United States now faces not only an energy crisis but also loses its strategic position in the international energy competition. With the loss of hydroelectric supply from Canada, states like New York, California, and Michigan are facing the threat of rolling blackouts, especially during the winter months. Electricity prices have soared, and some regions are even considering implementing peak-hour usage restrictions to avoid overloads. Major industries such as automotive, steel, and food production are starting to cut production due to rising energy costs. This not only impacts the economy but also threatens tens of thousands of jobs, particularly in energy-dependent sectors. Many businesses are facing severe profit declines, with some even closing certain production facilities. This is forcing Americans to witness significant changes in their daily lives, from prices to job opportunities, as the energy winter approaches. You've probably noticed, the United States is facing a challenging energy winter. Gas, oil, electricity, airline tickets, and goods have all surged in price. Families and businesses are shouldering unprecedented inflation, and everything is becoming more expensive than ever before. The electricity and fuel systems once reliant on Canada's supply are now crippled, rendering Washington's efforts almost ineffective. These events are forcing the U.S. economy to face a significant shock, and it's hard to predict what will happen next. How many options does the United States have left to deal with this crisis? Can Washington escape the energy crisis before it turns into a full-blown economic disaster? About $19 billion deal between Canada and the U.S. now hangs by a thread. Donald Trump is aggressive to punish Canada with a 100% assessment on its auto industry. And while the shouting match grabs a count, Europe agilely but ambitiously has apparent an €800 billion Aegis plan. The catechism is, who's really arched the West's new security order? The war of words amid the U.S. and Canada has entered a new chapter, with Donald Trump anon threatening Canada's auto industry, one of the country's best basic bread-and-butter pillars. Speaking on Fox News, Trump declared that if Canada doesn't booty activity to stop migrants bridge the Arctic border, the U.S. would appoint a 100% assessment on Canadian cars. Their absolution thousands pour into our country, Trump warned. If they don't stop it, there will be consequences. Moments afterwards, Canadian Prime Abbot Mark Carney issued a fierce acknowledgement in an official address. He declared, "No bulk of economic pressure will accomplish Canada carelessness its sovereignty. If they accomplish, they destroy our way of life." Carney additionally flatly rejected the abstraction of Canada becoming America's 51st accompaniment, an abstraction previously floated by Trump. He emphasized that Canada is an absolute nation, not a pawn in anyone's activity. The escalation in address has led to a shift in activity. Ottawa has a full review of its arrangement to acquire 88 F-35 fighter jets, alike admitting the first 16 aircraft except already been ordered. Re-evaluating this $19 billion deal marks a cogent axis point in Canada's cardinal cerebration and its posture on aggressive alignment. It's not just Canada. Portugal, NATO member, has additionally appeared the abandoning of its planned acquirement of F-35 fighter jets from Lockheed Martin. The Portuguese defense abbot explained, "We charge to reassess because America's current foreign action could destabilize its own allies." Two NATO countries' affairs back from the F-35 affairs at the aforementioned time signals added then aloof skepticism about the aircraft itself. It reflects a growing accident of assurance in U.S. strategic leadership oral the Western Alliance. For Canada, instead of relying added on the F-35, the government is now seriously considering the Swedish Saab Gripen E. And the affidavit are bright lower amount, easier maintenance, and the adeptness to operate in Arctic altitude acknowledgement to its design that allows landings on improvised runways. Best conspicuously, the Gripen comes able with the Meteor missile, one of the best avant-garde long-range air-to-air weapons in the world. But Gripen is added, then aloof a technical alternative. It's a political account, a declaration of aggressive independence from the United States. Canada isn't just looking for another ally, it's investing heavily in architecture, its own defense industry. Today, that sector generates about 10 billion Canadian dollars annually, with over 60% of revenue advancing from exports and supports more than 64,000 high-skilled jobs. Key players accommodate General Dynamics, architect of the LAV-6 armored vehicles, CAE, specializing in aggressive flight simulation and pilot training, and Magellan Aerospace, developing satellite components and rocket engines. At the same time, Canada is signing a series of major defense deals. They are purchasing 16 P-8 Poseidon aircraft from Boeing to replace its aging CP-140 fleet. Additionally, Canada is acquiring 11 MQ-9B Sky Guardian UAVs to monitor remote regions and border areas. They have also signed a $2 billion Canadian agreement with Germany to upgrade their Leopard 2 tank fleet. While key Western allies are charting their own aggressive paths, the European Union has just unveiled a bold new initiative, the Rearm Europe program, worth €800 billion. The plan aims to boost in-bloc weapons production, remove budget caps on defense spending, and significantly reduce reliance on the United States. According to the CEO of Rheinmetall, one of Europe's top defense firms, EU defense spending could reach €1 trillion by 2030. With these moves, Europe is asserting itself, emerging as a new center of military power, increasingly independent from Washington. And while the United States remains a leading military force, its indispensable role is beginning to fade, especially in the eyes of its traditional allies. What comes next in this evolving global security landscape we'll be watching. Well, there are no delays at all, nothing to do with the market. I'm not even looking at the market because long-term the United States will be very strong with what's happening here. Donald Trump just held a highly controversial press conference at the White House, and instead of calming the public, he made everything worse. From threatening to withdraw from NATO and reversing tariff policies to cutting social benefits, Trump made a series of shocking statements. But is this a calculated political move, or just a series of chaotic decisions? In a highly controversial statement, Trump questioned NATO's commitment to defending the U.S. if attacked, despite the fact that NATO invoked Article 5 after 9/11 to assist the U.S. He asked, if the United States was in trouble and we called them, we said, "We got a problem, France, we got a problem, a couple of others I won't mention, do you think they're going to come and defend us? They're supposed to, I'm not so sure." Trump didn't stop there. He reiterated his firm stance that if a NATO country doesn't contribute enough to defense spending, the U.S. will not protect them. Well, I've said that to them. I said, if you're not going to pay, we're not going to defend. I said that 7 years ago. When asked if this was an official U.S. policy, Trump doubled down. Well, I think it's common sense, right? If they don't pay, I'm not going to defend them. No, I'm not going to defend them. I got into a lot of heat when I said that. They said, oh, he's breaking NATO. These statements directly challenge NATO's core principle, where all members commit to collective defense. Is Trump genuinely considering withdrawing from NATO, or is this just a pressure tactic? Trump dedicated his economic policies claiming that aggrandizement is only temporary and that farmers will benefit from it. We accept to do, there'll consistently be a little concise abeyance. I don't think it's activity to be big, but, the countries and companies that have been ripping us aren't particularly happy with what I'm accomplishing, but the United States will be actual blessed and, our farmers are activity to be actual happy. And at the aforementioned time, Trump antipodal his own assessment action, briefly lifting tariffs on some imports from Canada and Mexico for 1 ages in an attack to pressure them on clearing and fentanyl smuggling. I told them that's it. This was a short-term accord and they came back to me bygone. They said, could we have some advice on the tariffs because of the speed? And I said, look, I'm going to do it, but that's it. Don't appear back to me afterwards the additional April 2nd. I don't want to apprehend from you afterwards April 2nd. But here's the affair. Trump has repeatedly afflicted his attitude on tariffs, leaving businesses in an accompaniment of uncertainty. Is Trump absolutely protecting the U.S. abridgment or aloof creating more chaos? One of the strangest moments in the columnist appointment was a Trump signed an announcement anniversary Women's History Ages and claimed his administration has done a lot for women. In account of all the admirable women in your administering, all the wonderful women in America, and in account of everything you've done for women, and this administering has done for women in aloof what a ages and a bisected. So, yeah, we've done a lot. But the absoluteness is this is the aforementioned man who has faced multiple accusations of animal advance. The same man who bragged about dark women in a leaked tape. Trump again appeared that Elon Musk would babysit accumulation layoffs in the federal government, affecting veterans, social aegis recipients, and infrastructure projects. Elon and the group are activity to be watching them, and if they can cut, it's bigger. And if they don't cut, again, Elon will do the cutting. This acutely signals massive job cuts, potentially affecting millions of Americans. Is Trump implementing necessary reforms or blame the U.S. into a new crisis? The U.S. banal bazaar is plummeting with the Dow Jones dropping 850 believability and the NASDAQ bottomward 3.1%. Trump's assessment behavior face heavy criticism. Alike, Fox News has turned against him. Could this be an assurance that a recession is coming? On March 15th, as the market took a nosedive, Donald Trump appeared in an interview, proudly boasting about his latest acquisition, a brand new Tesla. I'll accept it at the White House. I'll let my agents use it. I love driving, but I'm not allowed to. While Trump was excited about his car, the U.S. economy was facing serious turmoil. The Dow Jones dropped more than 850 points, marking one of the worst trading sessions of 2025. The S&P 500 fell by 2.3%. Affecting millions of Americans' retirement accounts and investments. The 10-year U.S. Treasury bond yield rose to 4.9%, signaling growing recession fears. As billions of dollars vanished from the stock market, Trump remained focused on his personal luxury. Trump continued to defend his tariff policies, claiming they would bring jobs back to America. But the market reacted differently. The NASDAQ fell by 3.1%, with tech stocks taking a massive hit due to rising import costs. Major companies like Apple and Tesla saw their stock values drop by 5.6% and 4.8% respectively, as concerns over supply chain costs escalated. Retail giant Walmart warned the tariffs would lead to price hikes, directly impacting American consumers. Even Fox News couldn't ignore the situation. One of its reporters bluntly stated, "These policies are throwing the market into chaos and putting the U.S. at risk of a recession." At a White House press conference, Trump's spokesperson Carolyn Leavitt tried to defend the tariffs, claiming, "Tariffs are not a tax increase, they are actually a tax cut for the American people." Immediately, a Fox News anchor fired back, "Have you ever paid a tariff? Because they don't hit foreign countries, they hit American businesses and consumers." According to a report from the American Enterprise Institute, 98% of U.S. tariffs on China are actually paid by American businesses and consumers. Import prices have risen by 17% since Trump's latest tariffs were imposed. Core inflation in the U.S. has increased by 5.2% year over year, partly due to tariff-related costs. Unable to counter these facts, Leavitt hesitated and responded awkwardly, "I think you're underestimating my economic expertise." Even Fox News, long known for its abiding support of Trump, was no longer pushing his administration's economic rhetoric after the market's sharp decline. Some Fox News commentators began publicly criticizing Trump's economic policies. Fox's chief correspondent Peter Doocy remarked, "Even Trump's closest allies disagree with his tariff strategy. We're witnessing a market shock caused by the actions of his administration." Meanwhile, data from the Federal Reserve showed the likelihood of a U.S. recession in 2025 has risen to 65%, fueled by trade action uncertainty. Unemployment has climbed to 4.6%, with many small businesses starting to cut jobs. Consumer confidence has dropped to its lowest level in 18 months as Americans worry about their financial future. Investors continued selling off stocks, fearing a deepening economic crisis. But when pressed on these concerns, Trump dismissed them vaguely, saying, "We're in a transition period, it will take some time." His cryptic response failed to calm the markets and did little to restore his credibility among voters in the financial sector. Fox News, once one of Trump's main media allies, could no longer defend him. Canada strikes back at U.S. tariffs, a significant blow to the U.S. economy. U.S. Canada trade tensions are at an all-time high. The U.S. imposed record-high tariffs and Canada retaliated with force. But what's more concerning is that Canada holds a strategic card that could severely impact the U.S. economy. What is it? The importance of Canada's energy supply. If there's one area where the U.S. heavily relies on Canada, it's energy. Few people realize that Canada is the largest supplier of crude oil to the U.S., with most of it coming from Alberta's oil sands. Refineries in the Midwest are specifically designed to process Canadian crude, not oil from Russia or the Middle East. Beyond oil, Canada is the second largest supplier of natural gas to the U.S., with an extensive pipeline network. Canada's energy exports have been the lifeline of American industries for decades. But what if Canada tightens its supply in response to U.S. tariffs? The economic consequences could be severe. Canada's two-phase retaliatory tariffs. Canada isn't just leveraging energy. It has a calculated tariff retaliation strategy. Phase 1. A 25% tariff on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, mainly targeting essential consumer products like food, clothing, and household items. This directly affects everyday American life, increasing pressure on businesses and policymakers. Phase 2, an even harsher blow, with $125 billion in U.S. goods facing tariffs. This time, Canada is targeting core American industries including automobiles. Higher tariffs on car parts and electric vehicles, steel and aluminum, disrupting manufacturing supply chains. Agriculture causing significant losses in key U.S. farming states. These measures could destabilize entire sectors while U.S. consumers brace for rising prices. Impact on the auto industry. One of the hardest hit sectors, the automotive industry. For decades, the U.S. and Canada have operated an integrated supply chain where key auto components, EV batteries, sensors, frames, and engines, are produced across both countries. Disrupting this flow means skyrocketing production costs for American automakers. Experts predict vehicle prices could rise by thousands of dollars, directly impacting U.S. consumers. EVs are particularly vulnerable as essential materials like nickel, lithium, and cobalt, crucial for batteries, are sourced from Canada. Even more concerning, Canada has hinted at turning to new allies such as Europe, China, or South Korea for auto and EV trade. If this happens, the U.S. risks losing its position as a global leader in the EV industry. Will the U.S. accept these economic losses just to maintain its tariffs? Public and political reactions in Canada. Surprisingly, the Canadian public is not backing down from this trade tension. Unlike before, this time Canadians overwhelmingly support the government's tough response. Recent surveys show that over 70% of Canadians approve of the retaliatory measures, reflecting a strong sentiment. If we are attacked, we will fight back. The Canadian government is not alone in this stance. Canadian industries are actively seeking new markets in Europe and Asia to reduce dependence on the U.S. Some Canadian politicians have even called for stronger cooperation with the European Union and Asia-Pacific nations to counterbalance U.S. pressure. This raises a concerning scenario. If Canada shifts its economic partnerships, the U.S. could lose one of its most crucial trade allies. Politically, this marks a turning point. Canadian leaders are no longer positioning themselves as passive trade partners. Instead, they are openly discussing closer ties with Europe, Asia, and other economic blocs to counterbalance U.S. influence. This could redefine North America's economic landscape, potentially reducing the U.S.'s dominance in regional trade.